You Booked It, episode 38. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. Alrighty, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Corbitt Williams. Are you ready for this, Corbitt?
Let's do it.
All right. Corbitt is an actor, singer, and early childhood entertainer, providing classes and concerts all across New York City as the children's personality, Mr. Corbitt. He attended the Boston Conservatory and performed for Disney, TheaterWorks USA, and various summer stock theaters across the country, as well as writing and directing children's plays. In December, Corbitt released his first album called Mr. Corbitt's Songs for Maracas, available for digital download and streaming on all music services. Corbitt, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, if you will. Who you are and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Sure. So my name's Corbitt. I'm from a little city called Pensacola, Florida. That's on the Florida Panhandle, right next to Alabama. So we kind of say it's Floribama. um, and I live in Harlem in New York City. I'm here with my main squeeze, Ben, and my cat, Owen. And before the pandemic started, I was trucking all around the city, teaching early childhood classes for families and doing concerts all over, whether it was at a major event or in a park or at a birthday party. And I was also writing curriculums and programming for different organizations around the city. So now that it's COVID time, I'm spending a lot more time doing some projects that I've wanted to do and have been so busy. So I'm creating music and videos, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Love it. Well, let's move on to this next section here. And look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What's your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you two quotes.
Great.
So I'm giving you two quotes just because of the two facets of my life, artist and more as someone who works with children. So Mr. Rogers is somebody who I always look to, and I love his quote where he says, "Play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning, but for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood." And so that always helps me orient myself, especially when I'm in the room with children, just to be as compassionate as I can as a teacher and to kind of think outside the box. And then for myself and my path as an artist, I always go back to when John Lennon said, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." And that has really guided me as my career has gone through twists and turns. And it's something that I kind of live by.
Yeah, absolutely. I love both of those quotes so much. I've heard the John Lennon one before, but
Of
not
course.
the Mr. Rogers one. And that is so insightful, especially and such a good reminder for me because I've got a little 3-year-old girl as well. And
Yes.
it really you have to remind yourself because it gets hard.
Absolutely. And I tend to be I tend to be very black and white in my thinking sometimes when I'm planning or preparing something, and so there's always a part of my brain that wants things to stay on script and on track with children, and that idea of whenever to my really structured mind something's going off. That's usually when they're learning the most, and so I always have to remind myself of that.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's move on to this section. And Corbett, of course, you are an entertainer, a professional in this industry, and I am an entertainer. And I think that you would agree that this entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. Tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Well, I had an experience when I was in my early 20s and I was just getting out of college. And I had a really great job in the entertainment industry. And I came up with to the opportunity of re signing and continuing with that company. And someone who was in my life for a long time and is still a good friend of mine, we had a long talk and about what I wanted out of my life artistically, and wanting something more and something deeper and something bigger. And so I turned down that contract that I had. And I thought I was making the right decision, a real gutsy, heartfelt decision at the time. And then what ended up being shown to me as life continued to unfold was that it's going back to the John Lennon quote of life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I had these plans to have a very, very artistic, and I think in my head I wanted to be in control of it. But what I discovered is that if I had just let go and taken that next job that was in front of me and just kind of let life unfold as it were, that would have turned into an artistic opportunity too. And so trying to control my path kind of ended up derailing me from it for a couple years as I tried to figure out what happened, why did I do that, and how can I use that to inform me going forward. And what it did is just let me just take any opportunity that's in front of me, because just by me doing it, that's something that is artistic to me.
I love that, and it is so easy to get heady about our path and what we're doing, and
Absolutely.
we grow up with these ideas of what we want to do, what success equals in our mind, even though
Yes.
it's so different for every single person, that we try to, like you said, control it. And I've certainly myself been very guilty of that through my career. And I personally have found, I'm sure you'd agree, that when you are on the right path, when you're really just taking things as they come at you, you almost feel like there's a flow of energy and a flow of life that you're like, this is all just kind of working and I'm being fulfilled and it's great.
Yes, absolutely.
But you kinda need to experience both sometimes and to get derailed so you can see the difference and notice the difference so you can find it.
Absolutely. And something that happened to me a lot, actually continuing on that, is that when I was growing up, before I moved away from Florida, I had all these kind of visions of my career and what I would want it to be. But a lot of times it was based on things that I had seen on TV of famous actors and what they said, just experiences that were so far removed from mine. And so, I used to tell myself, I'll never do children's theater. And here I am, and it's been the most amazing thing that could have happened to me. I used to tell myself, I'll never do a cruise ship. But when I worked for Disney Entertainment on a cruise ship, I learned so much about myself and as a performer and as a person, and developed all these new skills. And so it was like life was constantly showing me that these ideas that I had in my head were not useful, and that it is so much more powerful to just take whatever opportunity comes your way, because you can surprise yourself with what you can do and how you can still remain true to yourself.
Absolutely. I love your take on that and your insight on that. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
Well, let's move on to this section and to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment.
Oh
That
yes.
one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer in this industry. Tell us about that.
Gosh, well, I was definitely one of those children who always wanted to do this, who was hiding behind the curtains and making my mother introduce me as if I was on like a huge stage over and over again. So, so that bug had always been there, but this is kind of funny. So I was in this big chorus where I'm from. It's called the Pensacola Children's Chorus, and there are lots of very successful people in the entertainment industry who came from that. So but in our town, it was a very big deal to be a part of that. And in the summer, the directors would put on these plays, and they were usually based on stories from the Bible, and they would have some sort of crazy score behind it with a different take, and they would write them each year and bring in a guest director. To us, it was a really big deal. So when I was in, I would say, fifth grade or going into sixth grade, I got into that summer's show, which was based on David and Goliath, and it was called The Rock Slinger ... and his greatest hit. So I
Clever name.
isn't it? A little too clever, but we love it. Shout out to the Poets. So I was in this, and I was just in the ensemble, but um, I always look back to this moment kind of humorously, because we were on stage at the very end and of the show, and the finale ends on this big high note, but that's really short. So, and all of a sudden it's done. And I used to do this thing where I would pretend like I was out of breath, like I had seen performers do, like on DVD and on TV.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and it would end going, "Our God is great," and then I would go, and, and
I
so,
love that.
and I would go down to the dressing room, and then I would school all of the older kids on this technique that I was doing to excite the audience and make the show even better. But I always look back on that, because that's when I really started to have some serious intentions about this thing here, and some real ambitions, and maybe a little bit of delusion, but all fun nonetheless.
That is so funny. I love that story. Well, let's piggyback on that question
Sure.
and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if those happen to be part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
So when I was thinking about this, I kind of switched gears into my life now as a children's entertainer,
Yeah.
and I am, I'm so fortunate to do all the things I do, and go to different gatherings and people's homes and businesses and do these classes. But there is a playground that I've worked at with the organization who runs it. It's called Vesuvio Playground in Soho. If anybody wants to go visit, run by the amazing Coral Dawson and Green Below 14. Um, but I had done, when I first got started, she gave me a chance to do weekly concerts there, and it built up a big base of mine. It gave me so much experience at doing what I do and figuring out uh, what makes it what makes it individual to me. And so last year I was invited to go back and do their big block party. So they have a big block party with all these different musicians and science teachers for kids, all these different kinds of vendors. And I was there, and I brought along my guitarist and drummer, Matt Gumley, and AJ Drums. You guys should look them up. They're so amazing. Um, and we showed up there kind of not expecting anything. And it was just one of those days where I had a huge crowd. The feeling was right. All the songs were so fun. My musicians were amazing. Everybody was smiling and happy, and I just remember that whole time feeling like I just felt 100% right in the center of where I needed to be, and doing what I needed to do with my talent and my intentions and how I want to make the world a better place and all that stuff. It just all in this 45-minute performance of storybooks and other songs that I just felt like I really feel like I'm on the right path, and I'm doing what I always wanted to do, and it helped me to see the path forward to my ambitions and all that stuff even clearer. And I know that might be a little unconventional, but it was just a really magical day that I kind of showed up thinking, well, let me get another gig under my belt and go buy some lunch.
I love it, and that day clearly turned out to be so much more than just paying for lunch that day,
Absolutely.
I I love that story, and then that's totally on base, exactly what we're looking for with a question like that, and I love it.
Awesome. Cool.
And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What
Yes.
projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And look, it's a kind of a crazy time right now. We're amidst this global pandemic,
Yes.
loads of social and racial injustices. How
Yes.
do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Goodness. Well, I think that think it's going to be a lot of online content. I was actually talking about this with some friends when the pandemic and the quarantine in New York started, and we were about a couple weeks into it, and it was starting to sink in for everyone. Um, but a part of it that makes me excited is there's so much in the entertainment industry that is based on tradition and based on the way things have always been, and theater and obviously more recently film and all this stuff. It does have a great history that we want to honor, but I think it's really exciting to think about how the entertainment industry is going to evolve to take the 21st century into account and to keep having things online, and including people that would normally be excluded because of privilege and things like that. I just think that, for me personally, this quarantine has been an amazing reset. And I think it really could be that for the entertainment industry too, just in accessibility. I think that we could gain so much from this time and what it's forcing us to do just to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning round.
Woohoo.
I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's do it. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Fear of failure.
Oh, such a very relatable thread for all of us entertainers.
Absolutely. Fear of failure, shame from failures that, perceive failures. Yeah.
And I think you just said it right there is perceived failure. I think that's what we are so afraid of because when we really look at what happens when we failed, we're basically where we started and
Absolutely.
things weren't really all that bad, and it's just a perception of how we see these failures. And in some ways, I think the goal then is to switch the perception to lessons and how do
Yes,
you grow?
absolutely. And the fact that you'll always be you and nobody can take that away, and there'll always be something next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the second question, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
So my piece of advice, I sort of had to glean the advice from this, but it was from my acting coach. She was also a director and a playwright in Pensacola. Her name's Yolanda, and Pat Simmons as well. They one day were having a conversation about the chorus that I was in, Pensacola Children's Chorus, and they're an amazing place. But she said the thing that you guys learn so much over there is stage presence. You all learn your stage presence, but when are you going to learn what the deeper things that will make that stage presence even more powerful? And I think about that constantly, that there has to be something underneath what you're doing.
Absolutely. You're saying it can't just be the end of a number and big gasping breaths?
Exactly. Although I'm very good at those.
I know, and it's fantastic. All right, third question. What is something that is working for you now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
So I'm going to go with what's working for me now. And what's really working for me now is taking my time. Did not give myself the opportunity to do that pre-COVID. It just going after all of the things that I wanted to do, and now I just get to really take my time and listen to myself and my artistic process as I'm working on these new projects. So I've been really enjoying that.
I love that, and I think a lot of us are finding this calm and that time to work on us a little bit because we get so caught up in the hustle of life and our careers that it's
Oh my
so
gosh,
easy
yes,
to just you don't even realize how exhausted you've become over the past handful of years doing what you do, but still loving what
absolutely,
you do. But
yes.
the fact that we've been forced to slow down for a second has been so enlightening, at least for me.
Yes, me too. And it's been amazing. I'll say one more thing. It's been really amazing because in what I do and what so many of us do, I rely on a transference of energy between myself and the people I'm teaching or performing for. And so many of us are doing online live content. I'm doing that as well. And uh, missing that connection so much, and finding a way to replace it with just being sure of what I'm doing and what I'm saying has been a real teacher for me during this time.
Absolutely. And the fourth question, what is the best resource, whether that's a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, maybe it's a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
So I always go back to this book called Boys and Girls, Superheroes in the Doll Corner. And it's by a woman named Vivian Gussin Paley. And she has spent so much of her life studying young children, preschoolers, and kindergartners, and especially studying the way that they make believe and the things that naturally come out of children, the stories that they naturally tell and make up. And um, that I got it when I was writing plays for children, and I just always think about the points of view that she comes across that children have, and always try to frame my content around those.
Love it.
Yeah.
And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I always think about this, and I try to not have it be a regret. But I always think that I should have left college after about a year and just gone out into the world. Um, but what I think that really says is that I spent a lot of years not listening to myself and my inner voice, and so that's part of that.
Absolutely. And I think it's just so important to try to have those conversations with as many people as you can. And if you're feeling something, try to explore it because it could be the best thing you could do, put you on a different trajectory, get you doing something that you're more passionate about because at the end of the day, it's your life and it's
Absolutely,
you who will define your own success and you have to live with you every day. So put yourself first so you can if you're in the wrong place, that's fine. It's okay to be there, and then you can adjust.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's just I spent a lot of years of my early 20s having this such a specific plan for myself
Yeah,
with hardly any give to that plan, and I just missed so many opportunities just from not just from not even listening to people, or listening to things that were happening in my life and letting that inform me. It took me a lot of years to get that under my belt. So as many people would say, I wish I had gotten there when I was younger.
yeah.
So
And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry that you'd like to leave with everyone?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself and the voice inside of you and the things that you want to do. The more that you do that and ignore the fears, the more that you'll get closer to what you really want to do in a way that you can really contribute to the world.
I love that. That is incredible advice for everybody.
Mm.
And to wrap up this interview, it is time to give yourself a plug.
All right.
Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes. Okay. Deep breath. So you can find me on YouTube if you search Mr. Corbitt. So my name is spelled Corbitt. I'm also on Instagram at Mr.Corbitt. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/CorbittKids. That's actually where you can find a lot of my live classes in my archive for you people out there with young children. And then finally, I have my first album on iTunes, Spotify, and any of the streaming services, Mr. Corbitt's Songs for Maracas.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Well, Corbitt, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been absolutely fantastic.
it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Dane.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.